43% of Americans struggle with constant fatigue. That's nearly half of the population. Constant fatigue is debilitating. It negatively impacts your relationships, your work, productivity, and overall well-being. If you're struggling with constant fatigue, I'm going to share with you the root cause and, most importantly, some easy steps for you to have natural energy throughout the entire day. Let's start the conversation talking about the root cause of why you feel tired all the time. The only reason is mitochondrial dysfunction. You learned in biology class that the mitochondria are the powerhouses of your cells, and that is true. That is one of many roles of the mitochondria. Your mitochondria produce energy, so when it produces energy, you feel good. When it lacks this energy production, you feel inflamed and fatigued. Mitochondria derives from the Greek word mitos and chondrion, meaning thread and little granule. These mitochondria are within all of your cells with the exception of red blood cells. The mitochondria's biggest job for your body is oxidative phosphorylation, where a series of chemical reactions use a coenzyme called NAD to extract energy from food. Once loaded up with energy, the NAD reacts with proteins in the inner mitochondrial membrane to drive the production of ATP, which stands for adenosine triphosphate. These little energy units, ATP, are the gasoline of your cells. And the ATP is the rock star energy that powers our bodies. The mitochondria, you can see from this graphic here, take three primary fuel sources: glucose, fatty acids, and amino acids. When the mitochondria are not functioning the way that it was designed, you're going to feel fatigued. And this leads to a whole host of other issues. You can see on this graphic here what mitochondrial dysfunction is linked to. And I know several of you are listening on the Metabolic Freedom podcast, so I'll explain what we're looking at here. If your mitochondrial dysfunction progresses, you can see that it's linked to ADD, diabetes, epilepsy, GI issues, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, heart disease, kidney failure, cancer, liver failure, and many other serious complications. As you can see in this graph, an illustration of an unhealthy mitochondria versus a healthy mitochondria. See, on the right is producing little energy and producing a lot of free radicals. A healthy mitochondria, as you see on the left here, produces few free radicals and a ton of energy. And cutting-edge research from Dr. Robert Navio and his clinic is showing that the mitochondria do way more than just produce energy. We once thought the mitochondria are just these mindless energy factories. However, you can see from this study here titled Mitochondrion that there is something called the cell danger response to biology, the new science that connects environmental health with mitochondria and the rising tide of chronic illness. So what exactly is this cell danger response? Allow me to show a graphic from my friend and colleague Dr. 𝙎𝙬𝘎𝘋. A healthy cell has mitochondria producing optimal energy and it's buffering oxidative stress. When a mitochondria is in this cell danger response, it is going to produce less energy and more free radicals. So the reason you feel fatigued and inflamed, it's actually a purposeful response from your mitochondria to protect cells and tissues from the body due to infections, toxins, chemicals, and trauma. Allow me to unpack this because this is a really important part of the conversation here. When the mitochondria get into the cell danger response, it's called wartime metabolism. Essentially, when you have too many stressors going on, and remember, stressors come from mental, emotional, physical, and chemical, the mitochondria adapt and act like this surveillance system for threats, and when there's too many threats and stress, it signals the cell danger response, where it purposely, to save your life, lowers energy production so you feel tired and inflamed. But then when that threat is gone, it's supposed to get back online to this peacetime metabolism. But for a lot of people, they get stuck in the cell danger response. A perfect example of how this works is with COVID. COVID is a virus, and we could talk about any virus. The virus is a stress, is a threat, and the mitochondria see that as a stress. So when you get sick, what's the first thing that happens? You feel tired. It's purposeful because the mitochondria does not want to use all of its resources for energy production. It wants to use it to deal with the threat. So it purposefully lowers energy production to deal with the threat. Now, in a normal situation, the healthy mitochondria, once the threat is gone, the virus gets back online and starts producing energy. But for a lot of people, it gets locked in to the cell danger response. This is a result of long COVID and just feeling fatigued and tired all the time. That's an example for a virus. It could be any stress that causes this. So what we want to do, and I'm going to share with you 5 easy ways to do this, is to get your mitochondria back online into peacetime metabolism. And I have to say, I totally geeked out studying the mitochondria for this lesson, and I want to share some interesting facts with you on the mitochondria before we move on to the 5 easy ways to enhance mitochondrial function and get you energy throughout the entire day. So the first interesting fact is that you get all of your mitochondria exclusively from your mother. So think about the health of your mom, and that could relate to the health of your mitochondria. The cells that are most metabolically active, most needed for survival, contain the highest concentration of mitochondria. There are regions in your brain that contain millions of mitochondria in a single cell. There are tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of mitochondria in other metabolically active cells like the heart, the ovaries, the testicles, the eyes. These are the cells that are most needed for survival, and it's the cells that have the most mitochondria. Shows you how important the mitochondria are. The mitochondria fuse together to communicate with each other. For example, you could have mitochondria in your adrenal glands that talk to the mitochondria in your brain cells. Your mitochondria produce 95% of the body's energy through mostly ATP. 56 to 70% of mitochondria is estimated to be lost by age 70. Every cell within your body has mitochondria with the exception of red blood cells. And one last interesting fact is that the inner mitochondrial membrane contains an unusually high percentage, about 70% plus, of proteins, which are involved in oxidative phosphorylation as well as the transport of metabolites. Before I get into the solutions for enhancing mitochondrial function, we have to remove the interference and the causes of what destroy the mitochondria first. So the following items are what damages the mitochondria the most. Number 1, we have heavy metals, such as aluminum, lead, mercury, cadmium, and many other heavy metals found in our environment, found in our food supply, our drinking supply, but also found in silver amalgam fillings. That's how I got mercury poisoning, and other factors that you want to make sure you address. Then we have a high sugar diet, especially a diet high in fructose and high fructose corn syrup. This is essentially mitochondrial poisoning. Then we have herbicides and pesticides like glyphosate, commonly found in GMO foods that are non-organic. This destroys your mitochondria as well. Then we have seed oils and vegetable oils, alcohol, gluten, pasteurized dairy, and antibiotics destroy the mitochondria. Numerous studies show how antibiotics mess up the mitochondria. That's because antibiotics are designed to stop specific parts of bacterial cells from working. In the eyes of an antibiotic, our mitochondria look like bacteria, which can lead to some unintended consequences. And I'll throw some studies on what antibiotics do to destroy mitochondria in the notes down below. Now let's get into the top 5 ways to improve mitochondrial health so you have more energy, less inflammation, and you feel incredible. Everything I'm about to share with you might sound counterintuitive to everything I just shared. I just shared that it's too much stress that destroys the mitochondria, and the 5 solutions here are actually applying more stress. However, we're doing it strategically where the body will adapt to the stress and get stronger. This is a principle called hormesis. Essentially, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Perfect example of how hormesis works is with exercise. If you are a couch potato for 10 years and then decide to go do a CrossFit workout or run a marathon, that is too much stress for your mitochondria to adapt to, and you'll become more inflamed and fatigued. But let's say instead of doing the CrossFit workout or a marathon, you do some light jogging, maybe some body weight exercises, mild stress, you adapt to the stress, recover, now you're stronger. So the goal is to apply a little bit of stress, let the mitochondria in your cells adapt, and then you get stronger. The first thing to do is to move your body. One of the best, easiest, most helpful ways to bring your mitochondria back online and create healthy mitochondria is with movement. When you move the body by getting steps, by exercising the right way and recovering from those steps and exercise, you stress the mitochondria beneficially to adapt and create healthy mitochondria. And the research shows there are 3 things you can do to really get your mitochondria back online with exercise. The first one is sprinting. A word of caution, if you're not active at all and you throw in sprints, it might be too much. So maybe you start with some mild jogging, but work your way up to some sprinting. When you sprint, you create a high demand of energy and stress in your body, which forces your mitochondria to adapt. And the good mitochondria therefore get stronger. The bad mitochondria do not adapt, and the body gets rid of it through mitophagy and apoptosis. So sprinting could be really easy. You want to do a 15 to 30 second all-out sprint. You could do it on a bicycle if you have bad knees, and then you want to rest for a minute and a half and keep doing that, about 4 rounds total. And you only want to do that 3 times per week. The next thing is compound movements, strength training. This is going to be where you recruit multiple muscles and joints at the same time. So some examples of compound movements are bench press or push-ups, squats or body weight squats or weighted squats, pull-ups, lunges, anything you can do to recruit multiple muscles at the same time, it's going to help. And then lastly, this is the easiest thing here, steps. 10,000 steps per day. There was a study that looked at tens of thousands of individuals, and it showed that people who got at least 5,000 to 7,000 steps per day had a 50 to 70% less chance of dying from all-cause mortality than those who got fewer steps. I'm saying to raise that bar to 10,000 steps a day. That'll create a mild stress for your mitochondria to adapt to. It'll activate the lymphatic system. It'll strengthen your legs, lower inflammation, make you more insulin sensitive, all great things. So aim to get 10,000 steps per day. The second way to get your mitochondria back online is with ketosis. And you may have heard of the keto diet, but I'm here to tell you that keto is not a diet. It's a metabolic process. And there's nothing new about keto. It's just nuanced. It's been around for as long as humans have existed. Ketosis is a mild stress to your cells and your mitochondria. And that stress creates mitochondrial adaptation, which forces the mitochondria to adapt and create healthier new mitochondria. This is called mitochondrial biogenesis. There's also mitophagy, where the body gets rid of damaged mitochondria and actually creates healthy mitochondria. When you're in a state of ketosis, you have 400% more energy than when you are not in a state of ketosis. So I mentioned the ATP molecules earlier. When you're burning sugar, glucose, you get about 32 to 36 of these ATP molecules. When you're burning ketones instead of sugar, you get 400% more of these ATP molecules. That's why you're going to feel more energized and incredible when you're in a state of ketosis than when you're not in a state of ketosis. I don't have time in this lesson to teach you all about ketosis, but I'll give you some simple ground rules here. With keto, it's not necessarily a high-fat diet. That is a misnomer. It can be a high-fat diet. It's not the way we teach it, and I don't teach it to my students. We have over 5,000 students we put through a keto protocol, and we don't look at it as a high-fat diet. We look at it as a low-carbohydrate diet. So if you could take your total carbohydrates and drop it under 50 grams total per day while increasing your healthy fats and protein, you're going to transition into a state of ketosis. If you'd like guidance on this, coaching from me and my health coaches with a step-by-step system, then you could check out our Keto Camp Academy. We are accepting memberships from all across the world. It's a complete system to teach you how to do keto the right way over at ketocampacademy.com. Tip number 3 is going to be accomplished after you get into ketosis, meaning after you're fat adapted. And that's going to be fasting. Fasting is one of the best ways to apply a healthy stress to your cells and allow it to adapt to create healthy energy and healthy mitochondria. When there's too much energy supply for what the cells need, when you're not fasting and eating high carbs and eating frequently, this breaks up the communication between the mitochondria. This is called mitochondrial fragmentation. High levels of blood sugar damage the mitochondria. When you eat frequently, you are damaging your mitochondria and aging faster. You're going to feel fatigued. You're gonna have to snack on something just to get a little burst of energy. That's not the way we want to live. You're robbing Peter to pay Paul here. Instead, once you get into ketosis, pair it with intermittent fasting. It's one of the best ways to remove the interference, and one of the cool things about fasting as it relates to energy is this. There's a process called energy diversion. It's one of my favorite benefits to fasting. It takes a lot of energy, blood flow, bandwidth to digest food. Whether it's a snack or a meal, you are requiring the bandwidth to deal with that. When you practice fasting and you are not digesting food, now you take all the energy that would have been used for digestion and you divert it towards healing. You activate your counter-regulatory hormones, which is your body's literal way of pumping you full of energy during your fast. This is why people feel so alert and so focused and energized during a fast. As insulin drops during a fast, these hormones run counter to insulin and they go up. These hormones are adrenaline and human growth hormone and cortisol, so you feel energized. This is your body's way of pumping you full of energy because it thinks you're going through a famine. It doesn't understand, you consciously understand that you could walk to your kitchen and get food, or go on your phone and hit Uber Eats or DoorDash and get food, but your metabolism and your innate intelligence is hardwired for the old school. So it's pumping you full of energy and resources because it thinks you need to go out there and hunt and kill, but you're just going to use it to have more energy. So here is the protocol to create autophagy, mitophagy, apoptosis, which are just fancy words for cleaning out the bad mitochondria and enhancing the healthy mitochondria. An 18-6 daily schedule works really well for this. This means out of a 24-hour period, for 18 hours, you're fasted. You're just having water, sea salt, maybe coffee, tea, no food for 18 hours. Then you have a 6-hour eating window where ideally you're eating very low carb, keto-friendly meals, keeping your total carbs under 50 grams total for the day. And that could be 12 to 6 p.m. eating window, having 2 to 3 meals, 6 p.m. to 12 p.m. the next day, fasting window. As you do this more consistently, you could then begin to throw in a 24-hour water fast where you just go once a week in a fasted state for 24 hours. What this would look like, for example, would be Sunday you're done eating at 6 p.m. and then you continue fasting until Monday at 6 p.m., 24 hours only having the water, coffee, tea, supplements, no food. The next easy way to enhance mitochondrial function and help you have more energy is to consume the proper antioxidants and ingredients that really enhance mitochondrial health. That's going to be copper, magnesium, and vitamin A rich foods. All of this is needed for cellular respiration, which is your mitochondria's ability to create energy from food. Now, copper rich foods are going to be organ meats, kidney, liver, and other organ meats. What depletes copper are non-organic foods, so coffee, which is loaded with pesticides, wine, corn, soy, wheat, loaded with pesticides, displaces copper. Then we have vitamin A, which is important for your body to use copper. The food sources that contain the highest amount of vitamin A are beef liver, parsley, chives, and then we also want to supplement with magnesium, about 400 to 600 milligrams per day, to also support mitochondrial health. As far as antioxidants go, here's something that is really interesting. The mitochondria only use 2 antioxidants. That's it. These are the 2 most powerful antioxidants for the mitochondria. First one is melatonin. The second one is glutathione. A lot of people think melatonin is just a sleep supplement, but it turns out it's way more than that. It's actually the most important antioxidant for your mitochondria. And melatonin is something that your mitochondria actually produce to buffer stress and help it with energy production. It's super fascinating. So I would recommend supplementing with melatonin. I personally do really high doses of melatonin to support my mitochondrial health. And what do I mean by that? I've taken 100 milligrams, 200 milligrams of melatonin before bed. And I know it sounds like a lot, but it works really well. And there's no negative feedback loop with melatonin. Melatonin is an antioxidant and a hormone, but if you take it, it doesn't shut down your body's ability to produce melatonin like other hormones will do, such as testosterone, estrogen, human growth hormone. You don't get that negative feedback loop with melatonin. So you could look up melatonin-containing foods like pistachios and cherries. but that's not enough to get you the result here. You want to actually consume or take a melatonin supplement, and I'll drop a link for the one I use down below. Then we have glutathione. Glutathione is a master antioxidant, really important for buffering oxidative stress within the mitochondria, and a lot of people are glutathione deficient. I use a glutathione patch from a company called LifeWave, and I put it on my toe, and it raises my blood glutathione levels within 24 hours. I use this patch every other day, where I just put it on my foot, wear it for 12 hours, and you can learn more about this patch and all these LifeWave patches over at ketocamp.com/LifeWave. I'll drop a link for it down below. And the last thing you want to consider here in terms of fueling the mitochondria are high-quality amino acids. The mitochondria runs on minerals and amino acids. So the body can make amino acids, but it cannot make minerals. So definitely consume animal meat, animal protein, which contain complete amino acids. You might want to supplement with amino acids as well. But the minerals we need to get exogenously, and unfortunately our crops are depleted of minerals. So I personally use a product called Beam Minerals, which really support my mitochondrial health and helps to remove glyphosate from the body, which destroys the mitochondria. So I take a shot of Beam Minerals, 2 different bottles, which I'll put a link for down below, or you could go to beamminerals.com/ketocamp, use the coupon code ketocamp to get 20% off your Beam Minerals. And the last way to enhance mitochondria and help you have more energy, it's my favorite tip, and that's how you feel, how you think drives changes in your mitochondria. I think one of the best things we can do for our health and our energy levels and our mitochondria is to live on purpose with our purpose. Sounds a little crazy or woo-woo, but allow me to explain. There was a book from the late 1980s called Recovering the Soul. Dr. Larry Dossey, medical doctor. In that book, it showed a study that 75% of Americans have their first heart attack Monday morning between 8 and 9 a.m. Why is that relevant? Because that's people going to jobs they hate. The stress caused a heart attack. So we want to make sure we love what we do. We enjoy what we do. We're going to get a lot of energy when we have purpose and we live on purpose with that purpose. On top of that older study, there was a recent study that showed what chronic stress, meaning people that are not living on purpose with their purpose, does to deplete mitochondrial function. The study by Elissa S Epel, published on PubMed, which I'll reference down below, showed that individuals who lived on purpose with their purpose and appreciated life and appreciated what they were doing had healthier mitochondria. They measured it by the Mitochondrial Health Index, MHI, versus those who didn't do this had unhealthy mitochondria, and they did this on caregivers. And if you know anything about caregivers, that's a pretty stressful job. They see people on their deathbed. So those who are appreciative of their job had healthier mitochondria. So do people who feel more positive and grateful have healthier mitochondria? Yes, the studies are showing that. Now the question is it the mitochondrial health driving how we feel, or is it how we feel driving mitochondrial health? I would say it's the latter. On top of that, one of the best supplements you can take for your health and for your mitochondria is a supplement called vitamin G. Vitamin G has been shown to lower cortisol levels, increase your immune system health, turn on parts of your brain that produce GABA, serotonin, oxytocin, dopamine, so these are feel-good chemicals and hormones. Vitamin G has been shown to lower blood sugar levels, lower inflammation, lower blood pressure levels, and I gotta tell you that Dr. Joe Dispenza has done workshops on vitamin G and has seen dramatic shifts in people who take vitamin G every single day. I don't have a link or an affiliate code for vitamin G because vitamin G, as you can see on my shirt for those watching on YouTube, is the practice of gratitude. What you appreciate appreciates. Love your cells, love your body, love your mitochondria, and the more you love it, the more healthier it's going to be. The average person has 60,000 thoughts every single day. And it's estimated, according to psychiatrists, that 90% of those thoughts are the same thoughts from yesterday, and 85% of those thoughts are negative thoughts. Zig Ziglar called this stinking thinking. And I say, if your thinking is stinking, your dreams and your health are shrinking. And Dr. Bruce Lipton, world-renowned cell biologist who I've had on my Metabolic Freedom podcast, has shown and proven through his research that your thoughts are a frequency that communicate with your DNA and your mitochondria to create a series of reactions. So if it's a hateful, angry, resentful, inflammatory thought, that signal sent to your cells and mitochondria produce inflammatory proteins. If it's a loving, grateful, abundant thought, same signal is sent, but now what's produced are anti-inflammatory proteins. It protects your cells and protects your mitochondria. So if we have 60,000 thoughts every single day, we have 60,000 opportunities to put the body in a healing, anti-inflammatory state every single day. And to me, that's the greatest health biohack I've ever come across in my entire life. Now, on top of that, since we were mentioning biohacking and a lot of you are into biohacking, I want to share with you some bonus tips. These are biohacks that you can incorporate to enhance mitochondrial health and energy production, so you have natural energy throughout the day. So these are 2 tips here. The first one is cold exposure. Cold exposure could come in the form of getting into a cold body of water, like a lake or a river or the ocean, or a bathtub, a cold plunge, cryotherapy. The goal is to make sure the water and the exposure is 59 degrees Fahrenheit or less. That's where the studies show you get the benefits here. When you get into a cold body of water, you create a short stress, and that stress actually creates healthier mitochondria. You feel more energized getting out of the cold exposure. There's also a dramatic increase in dopamine, which is a feel-good chemical and hormone. There's also other benefits like the mental resilience you get from doing the cold exposure. Now, if you're tired and fatigued, chances are you won't do well with a lot of cold exposure. You want to go really slow with it. And when I say slow, I mean 10 seconds. That's it. Your first session is 10 seconds. Next session is 15 seconds. Build your way up. You want to pay attention to how you feel the rest of the day. You should feel better and more energized, not worse. If you feel worse, you did too much. The studies show you want to eventually accumulate 11 minutes total of cold exposure every 7 days to get the beneficial effect of the mitochondrial health we're looking for here. Because when you get into that cold body of water, it activates cold shock proteins. It takes white fat, which is inflammatory fat around your organs, visceral fat, and converts it to beige and brown fat. It's brown fat because it enhances mitochondria. So you want to achieve that and work your way up to 11 minutes total per week, but go nice and slow. The second tip is the opposite of cold exposure, and that is heat exposure. Sauna is amazing for mitochondrial health. There are different saunas: dry sauna, steam sauna, infrared sauna. I personally have an infrared sauna, and it creates heat shock proteins that also enhance mitochondrial health. You want to aim to get 90 minutes total of sauna each week. Again, work your way into it, go nice and slow. The plunge I use, by the way, is from plunge.com. If you use the coupon code KETOCAMP, you could get a few $100s off. And the infrared sauna I use is from Sunlighten, with the link down below. You could get it using the coupon code KETOCAMP for $600 off, and I'll drop both those links down below. Now let's address a couple of questions that arise when I discuss this topic of mitochondrial health and constant fatigue. First question is this: how do I know if I'm adapting to these stressors? I mentioned a little while ago, pay attention to how you feel the rest of the day. You should feel more energized. Another thing you can do is to track your sleep and heart rate variability. Sleep is important to get quality 90 minutes of deep and REM sleep, and you can track that using a sleep tracker. But heart rate variability is probably the best gauge you could check to see if you're adapting to the stress. Essentially, we have our sympathetic branch of our nervous system, which is your fight or flight. Then we have our parasympathetic branch, which is our rest and digest. Both are important, and we want to be really good at going back and forth. Your heart rate variability shows if you're good at adapting to the stress and going back and forth. So in general, you want a higher heart rate variability. I use the Oura Ring to track mine, along with my sleep and steps, and I'll drop a link for it down below. Next question is, are there any other supplements I can take to support mitochondrial health? There's a lot out there, resveratrol and antioxidants, but I would say my favorite is the ones I mentioned earlier, melatonin, glutathione, and I would add creatine. Creatine is really important for mitochondrial health. I personally take 7 grams a day. I'm a guy. I tell my female clients and students to take 5 grams a day, and I'll drop a link for the creatine I use in the notes down below. If you enjoyed this video, you're gonna love a recent video on the 7 foods, the worst foods that destroy your mitochondria. Check out this clip, and I'll see you in that next video. It will shorten your lifespan and lead to diseases faster than smoking cigarettes. Now these foods, some people think they're healthy, but we're gonna outline why they're not healthy for you. As I outline these foods, at the end of the presentation here, I'm gonna share with you the most powerful anti-inflammatory healing supplement for your metabolism, for inflammation, for burning fat and feeling good. So stay tuned for that.